On behalf of everyone at WNET, congratulations to Steve Adubato and the Caucus Educational Corporation on 25 great years of broadcasting.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Barnabas Health, Berkeley College, the law firm of Gibbons PC, United Water, making the planet sustainable is the best job on Earth, Wells Fargo, Verizon Communications, and by New Jersey Natural Gas, proud to support education in our communities. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger, powering NJ.com, and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and its monthly magazine, New Jersey Business.
This is One-on-One.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
People like laughing at others, so I don't mind if the other is me.
See, you go right into the character. That's what it is.
I'm bringing families together a half an hour each week. Man, I'm doing something special.
And so I do feel successful.
Welcome to the Tisch WNET studios right here in the heart of Lincoln Center. I want to introduce you to one of our neighbors, one of our most prestigious neighbors. Dr. Joseph Policie is the president of the Juilliard School. Juilliard, what do they do there? Since 1905, you guys have been absolutely the best, the gold standard. Tell folks what Juilliard is all about. And by the way, your 30th year?
This is my 30th year as president. Yep.
Congratulations. Tell
Thanks
folks about
much.
Juilliard.
Well, it's a school of music, dance, and drama. 1905 is when we started as a school of music to replicate the standards and traditions of European conservatories. And in 1951, when William Schumann was president, he brought on a dance division because he believed that dance and music were integrated art forms, which of course they are. And then when Juilliard was asked to move to Lincoln Center from 122nd Street, where Manhattan School of Music is now, a drama division was started. And so when we finally got here in 1969, when the building opened at Lincoln Center, we had all three performing arts divisions, drama, dance, and music.
Let's take a quick look at a video that tells a little bit of the story of this terrific institution. Let's take a look at the clip. Who exactly were we looking at there? Who are those students?
These are very talented young people from all around the world. About 30% of our students are international students. And it's a very selective process of admission. And we try to find the very best potential, creativity, imagination, discipline, technique.
How many people apply?
Over a course of a year, about 5,500 to 6,000. But a lot of them are screened out for various reasons, whether it be the fact that they don't play a mid-period Beethoven sonata and piano.
Oh, that little thing?
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
How many slots are we talking about incoming class?
Well, it depends on each division. In drama,
let's talk about drama.
Extremely selective. So we have about 1,600 applicants, auditioners, who actually come to us for only 18 spots.
And they all audition?
Everybody auditions. And the only way to get into Juilliard, the only way to get through the door is to audition. But then after that, there's a whole series of filters and interviews. But that's the whole concept about Juilliard, I think, that's so wonderful. It's about merit, it's about excellence, and it's about potential.
But it's also about opportunity, because you also have a lot of diversity. And there's opportunity for some young people who otherwise would not have this opportunity. So how is it that you figure out, particularly for folks who don't have the financial wherewithal to do it, how do you figure all that out? Because they do go, and there is opportunity. How do you do that? Well,
first of all, it's based on talent, and it's based on a desire to try to go into the profession. I say to parents when they ask, should my child come to Juilliard, I'll say, is your child white hot about being an actor, dancer, or musician? And if they're not sure, I often say, I don't think Juilliard perhaps is the place for you. Let's think about it later.
White hot means?
That their only passion, their only desire is to be a dancer, actor, or musician.
Well, if someone says, well, I'm kind of into it, it's sort of my thing, I just like to test it out.
No. Juilliard's not the place.
No.
No. That's sort of like saying I want to go to West Point, but I'm not really sure if I'm interested in.
I'm not
in the
totally
Army.
committed.
Yeah, right.
Nah.
No, you need complete commitment to be at the Juilliard School, and once you do get into the school, then it's actually an environment that really makes sure that these young people flourish, not only as artists but as young adults as well.
Describe, excuse me, describe some of the folks who have come out of Juilliard and have done some pretty good things.
Well, I suppose our alumni are our most illustrious group of individuals and people who have influenced the arts all around the world, from Leontyne Price to Renee Fleming to Itzhak Perlman to Yo-Yo Ma to Robin Williams to Kevin Kline, Kevin Spacey, Paul Taylor in dance, Lara Lubovitch. So it's this wide array of extraordinary.
So a huge group of underachievers. Is that what it is? and those leaders, actually, those really incredibly talented people, do they keep a connection?
Oh yes. If they don't live in New York City, when they are here touring or performing or visiting, they will always come by for a master class. And it may not be a public master class. It may be something just for the fourth year actors, or when Kevin Spacey's in town. I know obviously he's in London a great deal, but he will always come by for a reading or for something like that. So it's a great tradition of continuation.
We're a part of the WNET, the studio, the Tisch studio, and our president, Spiro, made sure that this place is a part of this community.
It's in our building. It's in the Juilliard building.
And you're such a huge part, way before us. What is the place for Juilliard and the New York fabric of this community?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the arts are an incredibly important part of our social fabric. And I think that Juilliard exists to plan for the future, to allow young artists in drama, dance, and music to make a difference in the world through their art, a positive difference. And it's a great frustration for me that the educational system in the United States, not just in New York City, on the primary and secondary levels, has really not supported the arts the way they should. So one of the principal things that we do at Juilliard, aside from all the performances and training, is to make sure that our students have a sense of their own mission as citizens within a larger society.
Ambassadors for the arts.
And get the arts out there to communities and to audiences that would not ordinarily see them.
You're doing important work. Dr. Joseph Policie, who is the president of Juilliard, celebrating his 30th year, and we wish you another 30 or forever, how long you choose to be there. It's terrific work and a great place. Thank you so much.
Okay.
One-on-One will continue from the Tisch WNET studios right after this. Thank you very much.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org, or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, Ph.D.
Marc Levinson is the director of Particle Fever. You look at these scientists, right? And one of the things you were just saying before we get on the air is that people are fascinated when they look at these scientists and they say,
wow, they're just like normal people. Yeah, no, that was the amazing reaction we had, just even initially to just showing little test screenings.
And you're a scientist.
I am a scientist.
And you seem pretty normal.
Right, I hope so, although I moved from science into film, so, but I don't think that goes away.
What is the deal with the God particle? With the Higgs boson. The Higgs boson, the God particle. By the way, we do a lot of shows here at Lincoln Center, but I kept reading over the notes saying, I'm trying to understand this. It's about physics, which is not my area of expertise, trying to understand why it's so special. Why is this God particle so special?
Well, I think it's been something that has been predicted for 50 years, and we have this incredibly successful theory of nature. I mean, it basically describes everything we see on Earth. I mean, everything, all the normal phenomena, in terms of a certain set of basic fundamental particles. Things that we know, like electrons, something called quarks, and other exotic particles, but a very small set of them, and a certain set of forces. But in order for the theory to work, there's one thing that at the center of it that was missing. That was actually necessary to understand why these particles at some early point in the universe actually formed matter, why they acquired mass, and why that allowed atoms to form, and then molecules and planets, and I mean everything else that allowed us to form. So in terms of the why we're here question, it's essential. Also, just for our mathematics, it's really absolutely critical. And it was predicted, this Higgs particle, I mean, really, the more fundamental thing is called a Higgs field, that this thing is what did it. And it was predicted by Peter Higgs and several other physicists who are actually, well, Peter Higgs and...
That's why it's named that.
It's named after Peter Higgs. There are several others. In fact, the Nobel Prize in a couple of weeks is going to Peter Higgs and Francois Englert, who was one of the other scientists. He worked with another person named Brout, who unfortunately died before he got it. But these people had theorized it, and they've been waiting for 50 years to see. And without it, it was a mystery, because why this theory could be so successful and explain everything, but we could not find this thing at the center of it was very, very critical.
But what's interesting is that while the science, the physics, the process is fascinating, the scientists themselves, okay, you do this film, it's about them as people. How comfortable are they being themselves on film?
Oh, they were actually extremely comfortable, I'd say. I mean, in fact, the idea for the film came from a physicist. David Kaplan is my partner. Right. He's a physicist. He, in fact, saw what was going on in the field and had this sense that something was going to happen, and this would be an interesting story, that they are human.
But you didn't know how it was going to end.
We absolutely didn't know how it was going to end. In fact, that is a classic documentary. We started, I started shooting in 2008 when they first did some initial tests at CERN. This is where it's over in Geneva, outside of Geneva, the Large Hadron Collider. That's the name of the machine that is taking these particles and accelerating them around at near the speed of light, and then banging them into each other at 4 points to see what comes out. And so, we knew that this was going to be a unique moment when this turned on. That is looking at a cross-section of the Atlas detector. So
the what?
It's called the Atlas detector.
Do you realize you guys have an entire vernacular vocabulary we don't understand?
I not only understand that's true, but that became really one of the critical things for us in making the film, is that we in some sense had to overcome that, and we had to come up with a vocabulary and say that this is our vocabulary for the film, and we're going to define these terms and not these other ones, and then hopefully an audience will follow it. So you're absolutely right, and that is one of the things I think does prevent some people from absolutely being able to follow this.
You have to decode this.
We have to decode it, yes. But it doesn't take a lot. I mean, it just takes a little care and understanding of what are the critical things to let people grasp onto things.
And the central themes that the rest of us who are not scientifically trained or even inclined, that should cause us to say, hey, this is important. We need to understand this because it's about our world. Those themes are?
Well, why are we here? I mean,
other than that,
something very simple. So I think, people that question that and want to know why we're here, what is our place in the world? These are the fundamental questions that everybody asks, scientists or non-scientists alike. I mean, I think, many people are interested in that, and this film really tries to put it into a context that anybody can understand. It's really, the story ended up being an absolutely dramatic, suspenseful story where you're following these characters. And so I think
these aren't characters, they're real people.
They are people, but it's interesting in documentaries.
Do they become characters?
Oh, absolutely.
Are they acting at all?
They're not really acting.
So they're not characters.
Well, it's interesting because, I actually came from after I went out of physics, I went into the narrative fiction world. And my editor is a very famous editor, Walter Murch, who also works on that. And we referred to them as characters. We felt, in the end, you're talking about them like characters. And, back to your original question, no, they were all very, very interested. And the fact is they are so involved with what they're doing. The first time you put a mic on them or something like that, there's a little bit of self-consciousness.
Do they forget?
They forget. They absolutely forget. And I don't know that I could be as oblivious. I mean, by the end, you know, my camera person, I mean, they would be just sitting there working at the board and she'd be moving around them and you know, I'd find that distracting, but luckily they didn't. And of course, they get so caught up in things. I mean, we were filming some dramatic moments when things were actually happening and they, you know, forget about it. Also, you know, I was around them for 5 years, so at a certain
You
point,
like these people?
I really like these people, and
These
I hope that
characters,
comes
people
through. I
slash
hope it
people.
comes through. Yes. No, I mean they're all fantastic.
And the film is called Particle Fever.
It's called Particle Fever, and it's going to be opening March 5th at the Film Forum in New York.
We wish you nothing but the best. Marc Levinson, director of a movie called Particle Fever, and it's about, oh, that little thing, why are we here? Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
We'll be back right after this from the Tisch WNET studios right here in Lincoln Center. It's really amazing.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org, or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, Ph.D.
Marc Mappen is the author of a fascinating book called Prohibition Gangsters, The Rise and Fall of a Bad Generation. Good to see you, Marc.
Thank you, Steve. Good to see you.
One of my favorite books, one of my fascinating topic that I'm fascinated by. Hey, listen, so anyone could write a book about gangsters. We've had other people on talk about mobsters, gangsters. But here's the thing. You make the connection between Prohibition, which lasted for
13 years.
13 years, and the rise and fall of some of these characters that include Lucky Luciano,
Right.
Al Capone, Willie Moretti, Longis Willman, otherwise known as Gangster Number 2 over in New Jersey. Some people don't know that name.
Yeah.
What is the connection between Prohibition and these guys? These pretty bad guys.
They're all part of the same generation. These guys were all immigrants, or the sons of immigrants. And they were mostly Italians and Jews who came to this country in great numbers in the late 1800s. And these guys were basically all born at some point between around 1880 and 1905, 25 years. So they're all the same age, and they're all immigrants. They're living in the Lower East Side and other rundown parts of town.
Right here in New York City.
Well, there's New York City, but Boston had its own version, and Cleveland and cities across the country where they had a large immigrant ghetto. They had these young men who were looking for some way to get out of the ghetto, some way to become a success. And then, by an amazing coincidence, along came Prohibition. And the United States government ruled that...
There it is. So the government
yes.
says you can't drink liquor legally anymore.
That's right. And in effect, what they were doing was they were handing one of America's biggest industries, the liquor industry, over to this generation of gangsters.
Dumb move. A dumb move.
Not for the gangsters. This was the greatest thing that
It was
ever
a dumb
happened.
move for the country and for the government.
It really was. And it took them 13 years to realize what a dumb move it was.
So people like Al Capone, who were born and raised here in the New York City area, right? He goes out to Chicago.
Yeah.
And he goes, wait a minute. Look at the opportunities out here in Chicago. He hooks up with
Johnny Torrio.
Johnny Torrio, who later that didn't turn out so well. But he goes out there, and all of a sudden, huge opportunity out there. You've got Longis Willman, who becomes a bootlegger over in New Jersey.
Right. He started as a fruit salesman, right, and a waiter, and he jumped on the Prohibition opportunity. You know, he realized there were some who realized, they weren't so stupid. They realized that this was a fantastic opportunity.
Did the government, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Did the government realize, did the federal government realize when they did this, we're going to ban alcohol, it's going to make it illegal.
Yeah.
Did they realize that they would help some of these people, including Lucky Luciano,
Yeah.
organize? People use the term organized crime as if it was organized from the beginning. It was not.
It was not.
Did they realize that in many ways they were helping disorganized crime become organized and change the face of crime in this country?
That's right. Crime was really a small stakes affair. It was thuggery. You know, you would rob somebody, beat them up, blackmail them. But then along came Prohibition, and all of these gangs became much more sophisticated because they needed bail bondsmen and chemists to brew the liquor.
And cops to look the other way?
That's exactly right. And juries to look the other way, and prosecutors to look the other way. And so these gangs became much more complex operations than they had been before Prohibition, thanks to the United States government.
I'm fascinated by this because Al Capone is not just an interesting character because people know his name, and Robert De Niro played Al Capone in the movie, right? And they see the scene with the baseball bat when everyone's sitting around, but Al Capone was more interesting than just his violent nature. Because Al Capone wasn't very sophisticated, but he did, in fact, go out there to Chicago, build an empire with Johnny Torrio, took the operation away from Johnny Torrio, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right, that's correct.
But it's interesting, he became organized and sophisticated, but still at the heart was a thug.
Yes.
And violent, and had to do the violence himself. Was he atypical for most gangsters who had to be the one, or would they back away, like people like Frank Costello here in New York, who was never violent himself? By the way, show the picture of Frank Costello. His hands are definitely not dirty, trust me. He thought he was actually a businessman, right?
Yes.
Big difference between Al Capone and Frank Costello.
Yeah. So the question is, how violent were they?
Well, they're all different.
They are, exactly. Different personalities, and some were mild, like Johnny Torrio, who believed in treaties and working out.
He was a businessman.
Whereas Al Capone was a little more inclined to kill the people who got in his way. Notably in the St. Valentine's Day massacre, where there was a rival gang. He wanted to get them out of the way. So he didn't do it himself. He stayed in his home in Miami, but he organized the rub out of those rival gangsters.
It's so interesting because years later, even though it's not in the book, John Gotti, who many people believe was actually very much involved in the murder of Paul Castellano at Sparks Steakhouse over on the East Side. They believe he was actually in one of the cars watching it happen, meaning some people, while they got sophisticated and organized, still wanted to be around when that stuff was happening.
Yeah, a lot of it is exaggerated, I think. Newspapermen are always looking for a story, so they'd embellish something. But in the case of Al Capone, he was a vicious guy. Some say it was because he had syphilis, and it had eaten away parts of his brain and made him aggressive. There's something to that. But then there were smart guys like Luciano.
Lucky Luciano, Charles Lucky Luciano.
Well, Lucky Luciano.
From Sicily.
He was from Sicily, which helped him a lot getting involved in organized crime, because some of these mafia organizations would only take somebody from Sicily or only from Naples, and they would refuse to have Jews in their organization. But Luciano was smarter than that, and he assembled a gang in the 1920s that included Sicilians and Neapolitans and Jews, much to the dismay of the mafia bosses. But this is something that Luciano wanted to do, and I like the concept that Luciano believed in diversity in his organization. Very trendy. And he was intelligent. He could talk to people way above his social class. He could ingratiate himself with them, and he was a good organizer. They finally got him for prostitution.
Yes,
for
promoting prostitution.
Yes, for running the prostitution racket in
But
New
not
York.
actually, it's interesting, some of these guys never actually interacted with prostitutes. They just ran houses of prostitution.
Well, it was a business. They had many businesses like gambling and bootlegging and extortion, and prostitution was one of them.
Real quick, Nucky Johnson, who, for those who are fans of Boardwalk Empire like myself, Nucky Thompson is the name that they use.
Right.
Right. Was a guy who was not in the mob, was not considered a mobster by many because he had a government role.
That's right.
But Prohibition was a huge part of his success.
Yeah. Well, he was a principal politician in Atlantic City. And in Atlantic City, they made money from the tourists. And the reason the tourists came to Atlantic City, as somebody once said, was not to read Bibles. If they wanted to read Bibles, we'd do that. But they were there for the booze, the broads, and the gambling.
Yes.
That's why they came there. And Nucky, who was an intelligent community leader, he made sure that those attractions flourished in Atlantic City.
And he needed the government officials to make sure that they would, in fact, look the other way.
That's right.
By the way, here's the worst part of it. Not worst, it's just the way it played out. It's the rise and fall. Every one of them fell.
Yeah.
Because?
because of the Great Depression. So they had made a lot of money, and they were planning to be more organized, and they're planning for the future and working out treaties to stop all the killing amongst them. And then the country collapsed because of Prohibition. And all of a sudden, these bootleggers...
No, because of the Depression.
Because of the Depression, yeah. Because of the Depression. People before that had admired these gangsters. They were sort of a Robin Hood attitude. These guys are supplying me with what I want, alcohol. But with the Depression, all of this is not so glamorous anymore. And that's when you start to see gangsters vilified in movies like Public Enemy and Scarface.
And Elliot Ness becomes somebody who we admire, going after them.
Yes, although his role was really quite exaggerated.
How dare you say Hollywood does that?
Well, they do, and they did it with J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover, who didn't want to have anything to do with Prohibition.
And by the way, one of the characters here, Thomas Dewey, was a crime fighter here in New York. He's a big part of that in the book here. Listen, let me plug it one more time. The book is called Prohibition Gangsters, The Rise and Fall of a Very Bad Generation by Dr. Marc Mappen. Great stuff. I've been wanting to have you in here for a long time. I love this book. Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Great
Good
stuff.
talking to you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System. Funding has been provided by Barnabas Health, Berkeley College, the law firm of Gibbons PC, United Water, Wells Fargo, Verizon Communications, and by New Jersey Natural Gas. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been made possible in part by the Adler Aphasia Center.
Hi, I'm Governor Tom Kean. A dear friend of mine had aphasia, which is a language disorder that occurs from a brain injury or a stroke. It robs a person's ability to communicate, but it doesn't affect their intellect. Programs and services offered at the Adler Aphasia Center help to improve my friend's communication skills, as well as her self-confidence and quality of life. Most importantly, she was among people who understood her. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with aphasia, there is hope.